Well, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Welcome to the John Dulong Show on this auspicious 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day. My name's John Dulong. Welcome to episode number 49 of the program. Welcome back. So glad to have you here once again for yet another episode of the Monday Morning Nonsense. Oh, it feels like it's been a while since I really stretched that one out there. Like I said, I'm John Dulong. Come on in, take a seat. I hope you're having a great Monday so far, a great week so far. If you're listening to this a little bit later than Monday, I know it's how on-demand audio can work. You might be listening to this on a Saturday, like some sort of crazy person. I don't know. Maybe you're listening to this not on Monday morning, on another day that isn't either of those days. That's how on-demand audio works. You're allowed. It's cool. In any case, it is the 5th of November when I'm releasing this particular episode of the program, so of course it is Guy Fawkes Day, which, if nothing else, is a good excuse to load up V for Vendetta and watch that great movie, because it is a great one. Even though honestly, I kind of think that the Guy Fawkes mask has kind of been ruined. Used to be to me anyhow that the folks over in terms of Anonymous used to be generally speaking on the right side of things. Seems like that has that 4chan and Anonymous has just sort of gradually shifted. I mean, hey, what it is, and Anonymous is a legion. It's not one ideology. It's whatever is sort of popular in the zeitgeist at any given moment. So it's not really anything that is actually controlled or tightly directed in any one particular way. Of course, it's going to have some swings, because ultimately what it is, it's a sort of pseudo-anarchist group. They're going to go where the most anarchy is. Please don't come after me, Anonymous. I am but a humble podcaster, and I've got, I'm not really that important to you in general. Unfortunately, V for Vendetta no longer on Netflix here in Canada, so I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna have to try and track it down legally if I can, and try and watch it. Watch it this day. When I get the opportunity to, just because it is a fun little tradition. If nothing else, it is that. Tell you what is on in Netflix here in Canada, and I got super excited when I found this out. In fact, the girlfriend, the partner in crime, and I sat down and played along. A couple of seasons, or a couple of collections, I guess, of Jeopardy are on Netflix here in Canada now. So we sat down and we played through like 5 games, just did sort of a tick mark of who was winning each question, who got each question right and first. That was the only real way that we could keep track of things, and it was a good way to spend a Saturday night. I'll tell you what. We may be like old people now, but like that was what we did. We ate dinner and then we sat there and played Jeopardy, which was, I don't know, maybe, like I said, maybe I'm getting old, but I had a really good time doing that. Speaking of a really great time, of course, as you know, if you've been listening to the program, the Trevor Noah experience, if you will. Trevor Noah came into town this past week, and we went to go and see him at the Scotiabank Centre here in Halifax. Really, really great show. Of course, I was expecting his. I enjoy his stand-up anyhow, and this was like sort of his normal act, which is very much about sort of his lens on the world in terms of how he was brought up as a very multicultural type of person, coming from South Africa as a person who was born to I believe it was a black mother and a white father, which during apartheid South Africa, which carries its own politics, but certainly he had his sort of normal talk about examining sort of the cultural the interplay between cultures, I guess. Also, he did a little bit of like contemporary Trump stuff, which don't normally see in his sort of normal sort of long form stand up. Of course, you see that on the Daily Show every night. If you do indeed go to watch the Daily Show, so highly recommend if you get a chance to see any of his stand up. Of course, a couple of his specials are up on Netflix. I highly recommend you go and check those out. But if you ever get the chance to go see Trevor Noah, wherever you are in the world, really, really good. Unless you're French and you don't feel like getting dunked on, because he dunked on the French pretty hard. I feel like he kind of knows that you can get away with like dunking on Quebec in particular. Like he dunked on Montreal pretty hard. I think he knows like I can get away with this everywhere else in Canada, and it'll go over pretty well. Which like I love Quebec. I honestly do. Like I have no problem with Quebec at all. But it is always funny to just see like, oh, he gets the interplay. Like Quebec is like the one that we make fun of. Like it's just kind of the thing that we do. I mean, realistically, like I think every province is made fun of for something. Newfoundland, you have your Newfie jokes. Nova Scotia, I suppose it's just like we're the pottiest province in the country. New Brunswick is boring. PEI is, I guess Anna Green Gables. Otherwise, they're just sort of irrelevant. Ontario believes that they're the center of all being. Manitoba is flat. Saskatchewan has Regina, and like that's just fun by itself. Alberta wants to be Texas so bad, and BC is BC. Housing market, but I don't know. This kind of went to a weird place. I'm trying to like front load the positivity on the show, because I normally start off the show with this like 10 minute long rant. It's usually something I'm fired up about. Usually something I'm a little bit angry about. I mean, I'm like I got some things I could rant about. I'm trying to make this opening bit just a little bit more positive this week for whatever reason. I feel like I've come in hot in the opening segments of the shows over the last couple of weeks, just simply because we've had Saudi Arabia to talk about. We've had other things just sort of surrounding the world to talk about. I'm hoping that I'm going to try and be a little bit hopeful. I'm hopeful that tomorrow evening we'll have some happy news coming out of the midterm elections down south. I'm hoping that the sort of dismal reviews that WWE is getting for Crown Jewel will prompt them to maybe think twice about how they promote themselves in the Middle East. I wasn't going to go into the crown jewel of it all today, but I am gonna touch on it real quickly here before we go into our first little break and come back with with some fun. I think the second segment of the show is going to be fun today. I will talk about Crown Jewel really, really quickly here. True to my word, I did not watch Crown Jewel. I mean, it was on Friday afternoon. I just didn't bother with it. Just because it wasn't worth my time. It wasn't worth the energy. I did, like I say, I said I would pick up who won what and what was important that happened from the show based on context clues. Seems to me that it was a situation where it was a pretty bad card. From what I understand, they did not end up having any of the same sort of congratulatory propaganda like they did at the Greatest Royal Rumble. That was sort of a big thing that John Oliver had done in his critiques of the WWE's deal in Saudi Arabia, was talking about how they were basically doing this really congratulatory sort of almost like I can't say it any other way than like filleting of the Saudi Arabian royal family, and of how things are changing under MBS and so on and so forth. There apparently was none of that on the show, and they barely made mention of sort of what was going on insofar as like advertising Saudi Arabia to the world. Which, like, I will say, like, that is at the very least not completely tone deaf, which is maybe like a low bar, but like it's not completely tone deaf on the part of the WWE. Because I don't necessarily have a problem with them going over there. They have been doing the Saudi Arabia thing for a number of years. It's just a matter of like they're doing this mega show that they're trying to advertise to the world, and they're broadcasting on the WWE network. And that's of course where the money comes from to do these shows, and that's sort of the problem that I have, I guess, is like it's becoming less like, hey, let's build a fan base here, and more like let's get a paid show done. Apparently, the story goes that Vince McMahon was prepared to do that show regardless of whether or not the original show had been canceled. He was apparently going to just wait for the whole Jamal Khashoggi thing to blow over, which, like, I don't know why that surprised me. I guess it didn't. It's pretty gross overall, I guess, is really the long and short of it, the thrust of it. But I am to understand that they did not do any of the sort of out and out propaganda on this particular event, which is good news. I also just like looking at things and sort of reviews from people that I do know have watched it. Apparently wasn't very good. The crowd was eating it up, but like you're going to have that with any crowd that doesn't get one of these shows every sort of week, basically, or it's sort of a more special event that the WWE's there, that the crowd tends to be more excited. A lot of the outcomes of the matches seemed very strange to me. I won't go into the blow by blow just because I know that not all of my audience is into it, but it seemed like the actual outcomes of the matches were strange, and like stateside in terms of the actual day-to-day impact this actually has on the normal product. I don't know. It seems like a weird set of choices, and hopefully will show that this is maybe not the best experiment. I don't know. Maybe that's over. I'm probably wishing too much for it here, but it is what it is. Anyhow, I think that's going to do it for this little opening bit. Like I said, I kind of wanted to keep things a little bit lighter, a little bit more positive, and we got into like global geopolitics, and maybe that's not the best way to keep things positive here in the opening bit. So after this little break, the girlfriend and I, the partner in crime and I, were out at the grocery store, and we both had a pamphlet thrust into our hands. We're going to talk about that. I think it's going to make for some interesting podcast on the other side of this. So just a quick reminder before we get into this little section of the show. This past week, I was on Elwood City Limits, the Best of Halifax nominated podcast. I was joining my good friend of the John DeLong Show, one of the longest standing real boosters of the John DeLong Show, Mr. Will Young. I sat down with him and chatted about a couple of adult Arthur shorts put up by AOK on YouTube. Highly recommend that you go and watch those shorts. I really sort of came around on them in a way that I wasn't expecting. I kind of expected it to it kind of felt very Seth MacFarlane, sort of the crassest version, I guess, of Seth MacFarlane. Which, like, I don't think he would take that as an insult. Me saying that, I was expecting that. I got something much different. I honestly, I do recommend that you go and watch those shorts and then give a listen to what was just a wonderful sit down chat with Mr. Young over on Elwood City Limits. Now, a couple days after I sat down with Will, I was having a pretty average evening with the partner in crime. She and I had head over. By the way, the partner in crime, that is her choice of a nickname. I was previously calling her the girlfriend, just decided to not have her name necessarily on the air unless she's like on the air with me. So the partner in crime is her choice as a pseudonym. So we're